everyone, welcome back into another video. Going to be breaking down the showdown slate here between the Kansas City Chiefs and the New Orleans Saints. Let's go and get into it. So as always, I do like starting out with the game preview here, build out the expectations for that game. And so looking at it, guys, it is a 43 for the game total, which that does feel right. Both teams are having some injuries to them that I think are pretty significant, especially for their offenses. And we'll touch on that in a second. The Chiefs are going to be 5.5-point favorites, which again, that does seem maybe a little bit strange, I would say. We've had some interesting lines. I would have put this more at probably 2.5 in favor of the Chiefs winning, just simply because you're taking out two of their best offensive weapons now. Rashid Rice is going to be out. Obviously, Marquise Brown is still out. And Isaiah Pacheco has been out as well. And so, yes, Kareem Hunt came in and looked pretty good in replace of Isaiah Pacheco. Actually, I was very impressed with Kareem Hunt. I thought he looked fresh. We'll see if that lasts throughout the whole season, but he probably will be the running back number one. And sure, it took Hunt a while into the game to really get going in terms of getting snaps, but I'm pretty sure he will be the top running back. To me, this was a lot like the LA Rams situation at running back last year, where when the RB1 Kyron Williams got injured and then the RB2 Ronnie Rivers was injured, we actually saw Kareem Hunt just get in there, or sorry, we saw Darrell Henderson get picked up from the team or from free agency and be the starter for the team throughout that duration that Kyron Williams was out. That's basically how this is playing out for the Kansas City Chiefs, where obviously Pacheco's out. He was the RB1. CH, kind of their RB2. He's kind of had some different things going on, but he's been out. Then they're forced to go with Carson Steele for a little bit, but then they signed Kareem Hunt, who has been familiar with this offense in the past. And so it does make sense for him to be the guy, and I do expect him to be the guy. And so the biggest thing that I'm questioning is who is going to be that receiver that steps up to them to be kind of that receiver number one. And so it is honestly tough to say. Like, to me, the player that actually probably benefits the most is both Noah Gray and also Travis Kelce. We saw Travis Kelce go in and instantly have a very big game. And what's weird about Kelce this season compared to all of his other ones is there wasn't really a rhyme or reason as to why he hadn't been productive the first few games. A lot of the times with tight ends, they're just really not a part of the game script or the scheme, if you will. And that seemed to be the case with Kelce. And now he's going to be forced into this bigger role. Throughout the year last year, they were wanting to save him to keep him fresh for the playoffs. Well, they're not going to have that choice this year. And so Travis Kelce, I do expect a big game out of him. But at the same time, Noah Gray is someone that they like. Now, his snaps didn't go up that much. I actually thought we'd see just a lot more two tight end sets. That didn't exactly happen. Noah Gray still played the same amount of snaps, but we did see him get a little bit more targets. 4 targets in that game. That was his most of the season thus far. He's someone that typically won't get blanked in terms of targets as well. I do expect him to have a pretty decent game. I do expect him to, he's someone that has Patrick Mahomes' trust. So I do expect him to have a decent game in this game as well. I expect his role to be slightly elevated, even if that's not in the case of the snaps. And so that being said, yes, Xavier Worthy was the one that had the most snaps, but Xavier Worthy is more of a big play receiver. I don't really see him being that possession receiver that they really need him to be. Juju got 50% of the snaps, which Juju's definitely washed, but he's being thrust in that role. Good for him, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. I don't love it. I mean, obviously, Justin Watson's the one that got the biggest increase of snaps, and he does have Patrick Mahomes' trust. They like Justin Watson there a decent amount. He'd be the one that I would naturally want to get to the most. But, I don't know, his production is just not going to go up. I don't really see it going up. Sure, he'll probably get a deep shot or two. Maybe we can bank on him catching one of those. But it doesn't really seem fruitful for me. And so for the Saints, we take a look at their pretty sizable injuries that they've had thus far. The biggest one to me, though, is going to be Taysom Hill being out this week as well. That really brings up two crucial aspects. One, we actually saw a little bit more snaps go to Alvin Kamara last week. We also saw him get some goal line work, and also Derek Carr got a goal line carry as well. With Taysom Hill being out, I just think that kind of solidifies Alvin Kamara's role in terms of getting those traditional running back snaps, which is pretty big for him. Also, tight end wise, Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson, we're going to see them play a decent amount as well. Juwan Johnson obviously gets a big bump with Taysom Hill being out, playing as more of the traditional tight end, but both those two are players that should get a decent amount of work, but this does really just make the offense be more traditional, which I think hurts the offense as a whole, but does help out in terms of predictability. We can bank on Alvin Kamara having a very good role. We can bank on Taysom Hill not stealing snaps away from Derek Carr, so that should lead to at least more goal line carries for Alvin Kamara or more red zone passes for Derek Carr, thus increasing the likelihood for him to score a passing touchdown. So like that should help out the predictability for this game. Now both defenses are pretty good. That is a little bit of a worry as well. But looking at the pass catchers, both these teams are very concentrated in terms of who we're looking at for the most part. Looking at these snaps here for the Saints, obviously the receivers, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are going to be the two that we're looking at, and then Alvin Kamara, and then a little bit Derek Carr. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into the picks. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and start out with the Kansas City Chiefs because that is where I think we are getting some of our better edges on this slate. We're going to start with prize picks as well. So looking at guys, we do have Patrick Mahomes to get under 1.5 passing touchdowns. That's one you can roll with. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. We can see he's been about 50-50 on that thus far this season. The Saints are a good defense as well. So it's obviously tight. That's not one that I'm directly going out of my way to target, but that's one that's popping up for you guys. I could see why you'd want to use it. Now from there, one bet that I like is actually going to be Kareem Hunt to get over 11.5 rushing attempts. I think that he is going to be the RB1 in this offense. Now, I could be completely wrong about that. They could actually turn to Carson Steele. Maybe we actually see a three-headed monster. But I think last week, just watching the film, Kareem Hunt definitely looked like the best running back that they should be turning to. Carson Steele had not looked good that good thus far this season, and Samaje Perine, we already know, is not that good. Perine can be used in third down work, but they clearly like Kareem Hunt, and so I like the idea of betting him to get over 11.5 rushing attempts. This is something that I like a little bit better on something like Fliff or Sleeper if you guys are someone that bets there, or just a normal sports book. Now, what I don't like is the fact that the projection data is only giving him about 10.41. And I kind of get that, but at the same time, this game is a game that's not that high scoring. It's a game that I think will be a grinded out fest. And given how depleted the Chiefs are in the receiving department, I kind of expect it to be a heavy Kareem Hunt type of game. Obviously, we hope that they're playing with the lead so that they can grind it out a win at the end for Kareem Hunt to get this over. But to me, this is one of my favorite bets. And I just like the fact that the data is also agreeing with it. You know, about a 53% likelihood to hit. I'm okay with that. Another one that's okay that I really don't mind would be Justin Watson for over his fantasy score of 5.5. It's not terrible. You know, just kind of looking at it, guys, the average receptions line for him is 2.5. Now, it's heavily favored to get the under there. I get that. But then you put his yardage total at, about 25.6 on average. Really, really not factoring in a touchdown at all into this line that we are getting here. So basically the line should be 5, right? And obviously with fantasy score, you're factoring in a little bit of nuanced stuff. The chance for him to get over the receptions, over the yards, or touchdown as well. That's all part of it. Maybe a stupid rushing attempt. Like that's all part of the fantasy score equation. But I don't mind this. I think this is a decent one, on this small slate. Again, I want to reiterate that I always bring this up. These one game slates, we're not going to get massive edges on. Now, I know we've been really good thus far on these one game slates, especially over this past week, but we keep going in on these bets that are not that likely to hit. It's going to hurt us in the long term, most likely. Now, that being said, are we getting any other good prop bets? I do see Kareem Hunt being involved in the receiving game, but if we're already saying that he's going to rush the football a lot, why even bother with that? Xavier Worthy, I don't want to mess with that one at all for his rush yards. I think that's just a weird one. I do like Travis Kelce to get over 5.5 receptions. Again, I kind of think they're going to be forced into giving him a decent look. And actually, while I'm looking at this, I think underdog, if we have over first quarter receiving yards, I might like that as well, because I think we'll know pretty early on if Travis Kelce is going to be involved very heavily in the passing game. So this is not a bad one. Let's actually take a peek at this one, looking at it at some of the sports books. And I also want to take a peek at Justin Watson as well, because there is a chance that he's just more involved than really what the data is suggesting here. And then I really don't mind Noah Gray to have a good game as well. I like him to get over 1.5 receptions. I feel pretty good about that. I think 2 is a good line. I would be fair in the over there as well. But let's take a peek at some of the sportsbook bets that we're getting. Then we'll jump into underdog. Now, guys, real quick while I'm pulling this up, we have one bet that's a bet that we're getting a pretty good advantage on over BetMGM. So if you guys aren't familiar with how this tool works, it's taking the average sportsbook odds without juice in the lines and then comparing it against the normal lines from a sports book. So for BetMGM, when we take out the juice of the average sportsbook line, BetMGM's original line is wrong. It's pretty much the best way to describe it. We are getting, it's a very, very tiny edge, a 0.10% edge. But that's crazy. That should not be happening. So if you guys are making bets today, by all means, go for that. With Taysom Hill out, I do think there's a good chance that he does get that, just as an FYI. Like, I don't mind that. And then for what's worth, another decent one, Juju for over his receiving yards on FanDuel. That's not a bad one there as well. So two decent bets today. In terms of like gaining an edge on a traditional sportsbook. But let's look at Travis Kelce, as he likes to call it. Travis Kelce here. I want to see the receptions here. Are we getting any edges here at all in terms of the payout? Not really there. I mean, the best one would obviously be ESPN Bet, where they're truly giving it a 50-50 split, whereas some books are giving it a little bit of the opposite of that. But to me, guys, that's one of my favorite bets. So not bad there. Let's take a peek at Noah Gray. Are we getting any good bets for Noah Gray? Receptions wise, every line's giving him about the 2.5, but they're all heavily favoring the under, which is reasonable. I would actually say probably, yeah, I do see him, getting to 2 receptions. This would be a bet that I would actually be fine making on PrizePicks or Underdog, just because it has a strong chance to be a push. I wish the line was like minus 150 to get over 1.5 receptions, but at this line, at those lines, not really worth it. And let's take a peek at Justin Watson as well. And it's basically the same thing with him. I think there's a greater chance that he gets to 3 receptions. So like Bet Online AG or ESPN Bet, where you're getting at plus 140. I'm okay with that, but I don't feel the need to go out of my way to target those. Let's go ahead and jump on into Underdog. And on Underdog, yeah, really not a massive edge there at all. Really just Kareem Hunt there. Travis Kelce's under fantasy scores being a little bit favorited. I wouldn't want to bet that. I actually wouldn't want to bet Kareem Hunt under fantasy score as well. A little bit of a tighter board on Underdog as it sits right now. So probably going to be making more of our bets probably on PrizePicks as it sits right now. We'll jump on into the Saints here. So for the Saints, I don't want to mess with the first quarter passing yards there for Derek Carr. If you guys want to, you can. Blake Grupe, I could actually see getting over 6.5 kicking points. So that's going to be one I'm staying away from. Shaheed to get over his fantasy scores, like decent. It'd be a better bet there on PrizePicks, as we can see the slight calculation difference there, but not terrible. We're seeing a slight receiving yards difference for Alvin Kamara. Chris Olave's receptions at 5 makes perfect sense. Annoying here on Underdog. So to me, it seems like more of a PrizePicks day. Let's jump back into PrizePicks. And yeah, we're going to see Shaheed's going to be a little bit of a better bet here on PrizePicks with the slight, calculation difference there. A little bit of a correlated stack you could run out is actually Chris Olave as well with Derek Carr. I don't mind that. Like, I'd be fine with that. But let's take a peek at Shaheed. So as I mentioned, Shaheed has been playing a lot. We already know that. Been getting targeted a lot as well. One bad game against the Eagles, that was pretty random. Other than that, has had a pretty sustained role. A lot of it is manufactured touches as well. And so on a site like PrizePicks, where you're getting rewarded for a full point PPR, there's a good chance that he gets like 3 cheap points just on like design short passes that you hope he can like make a big splash play on. Again, with Taysom Hill out, that increases the touchdown likelihood for everyone else in the offense. And so we're kind of hoping that he scores a touchdown as well, but not a bad bet. I'm fine with that one. And then, yeah, if you guys want to like stack that together, you can. Don't hate it, don't love it, but I'm fine with it. Another one where the projection data doesn't agree with me per se is going to be this one with Alvin Kamara to get over 16 rushing attempts. So it did get bumped up from 5.7 on average, because it's highly likely that he gets to 16 rushing attempts. A little bit of a game script. Obviously, if the Chiefs blow off the Saints, this is going to be less likely to hit. Then I want to take a peek at his receptions. His receptions is set at 5 as well. A little bit annoying, but let's take a peek at him. And so again, this is a difficult matchup for Alvin Kamara. So far this season, one of the more difficult matchups for opposing running backs. So how we go about attacking and using Alvin Kamara is a little bit more difficult. If he struggles in the rushing department, like getting it going on the ground, I do think he'll be involved in the passing game. That's why I want to look at both. Maybe this is a route where we do go his over receiving yards instead. But I don't mind the 16 rushing attempts. Again, with Taysom Hill out, I do think there's a good chance that they really do try to establish the run with Kamara. But maybe this receiving yards line that we are getting for Alvin Kamara on Underdog, that's probably the best bet that we have. And so that would be kind of my bet of the day for Underdog. Alvin Kamara to get over 30.5 receiving yards. Now, guys, before we finish up the video, I do want to call it. We are getting some pretty good edges for MLB today. We got Cole for over his pitching fantasy score. This is one that I actually like a little bit better on Underdog. We have another one, Carlos Rondon, for over his pitching fantasy score on Underdog. I know the rotations can be tighter. Okay. I get why the average sportsbook line is favoring the over for a lot of these, but really this top one on Underdog, I like that one a decent amount. So I did want to call that out. This is looking at the PrizePicks board, but decent board for MLB as well. And so, guys, my two favorite bets here for PrizePicks are these top two ones. Now, I don't mind the idea of including, sorry, the first slip was a slightly different variation that I'm running out. But I like these first two a decent amount here. Feel fine with that. And then I do think there's a good chance that these are both pushes. If you guys don't want to use that, that's fine. I want to make this into a 5-slip bet rather than giving you guys the bet with the MLB prop bets. I know a lot of people don't like that. But that's also why I showed you those MLB prop bets. If you guys want to use those two with these two bets, make it a 4-slip bet. By all means, do that. It's decent there. But I also do like Shahi to get over his fantasy score. Now, in the first slip, if you guys saw that and paused it, I had Derek Carr and Chris Olave in there. I will be running out slight variations where instead of Justin Watson in the build, I'll have Noah Gray, and then vice versa, because I think there's a good chance one of the two get over, maybe not both. But again, I think they both have a good chance to get two. And I'm kind of okay using these as well. Now, guys, I do want to call it something interesting here. I have Kareem Hunt's lines pulled up here on Underdog real quick. I just want to show you guys this. His reception line is set at 2.5 on Underdog. And if we go to PrizePicks, his targets is set at 2.5. So just interesting there in general. That tells us we might have a slight edge with his targets on PrizePicks as well. I just want to toss that in there. And so then looking at the Underdog by the day, I'm aware that a lot of people are not going to want to double dip with Kareem Hunt, especially after Mike Williams let us down from a 7-slip bet hitting. And then last night with Najee Harris missing out on his over receptions as well, tilting there. Both those hit. It's a massive week instead of just like a decent week. So I get that if you don't want to. But then we are doing Alvin Kamara for over his receiving yards. This did get bumped by 1, but still slight advantage over using it on PrizePicks. A difference of 1 yard can be the difference between it cashing or not cashing. And I will be running out that MLB prop bet that we have. Again, slightly better edge there on Underdog. Now, that's going to be all for this video, guys. Make sure